25 years ago then. I was working at CERN. I got permission in the end, after about a year, to basically do it as a side project. Wrote the code. I was at first, I suppose, the first user. There was a lot of concern that people didn't want to pick it up because it would be too complicated. A lot of persuasion, a lot of wonderful collaboration with other people, and bit by bit, it worked. It took off. It was pretty cool. And in fact, a few years later, in 2000, 5% of the world population were using the World Wide Web. 2007, 7 years later, 17%.
In 1958, a mysterious guest on a TV quiz show had a startling secret. He was Philo T. Farnsworth, and he had invented the first electronic television system. He conceived the idea as a boy of 14 before leaving the family farm in Utah. By age 19, the self-taught young genius had convinced a group of San Francisco bankers to fund his project. By 1928, he was able to transmit a recognizable image. The 22-year-old inventor sent a telegram to his backers declaring, "The damn thing works."
Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace, was born Ada Byron on December 10, 1815, and is known today simply as Ada Lovelace. She is celebrated as the world's first computer programmer, the first person to marry the mathematical computational capabilities of machines with the poetic potentialities of symbolic logic. This novel combination was in no small part a function of Ada's unusual upbringing. She was the daughter of a reserved but mathematically gifted mother, and the only legitimate child of the great romantic poet and notorious playboy Lord Byron.
On April 26, 1777, British Loyalists attacked Danbury, Connecticut, and a rider came to the Ludington's household to warn Colonel Henry of the attack. The fire from Danbury could be seen 10 miles west of their farm.
Colonel Henry had to prepare for battle, and the rider was too tired to continue warning men. Therefore, Henry's 16-year-old daughter Sybil took on the job of alerting men and gathering them together to fight against the British. Sybil had to move quickly, for all of her father's regiment was disbanded across many farms for the planting season.
She rode about 40 miles on horseback through Putnam and Dutchess counties, raising around 400 troops.
In Australia during the 1960s, doctors were trying to figure out why thousands of pregnancies were ending in miscarriages. And it turns out these babies were suffering from hemolytic disease of the newborn, or HDN. And to oversimplify the explanation, it's essentially a blood incompatibility issue between a mother and the fetus. And that incompatibility causes the mother's antibodies to attack the fetus and can result in brain damage, stillbirth, or miscarriage. And this usually happens in a woman's second pregnancy, and it actually happens in about 17% of mothers in Australia. Doctors needed Rhd negative blood and Rh positive antibodies, and when they found Harrison, who had been donating blood for over a decade at that point, they were essentially like, "Hey, we think your blood is magic, can you help us out?" And he agreed to donate for the anti-D program.
Yet car seatbelts at the time were 2-point lap belts, and these belts could cause serious internal injuries in high-speed crashes. In 1958, Bolin created the 3-point seatbelt, which keeps passengers safely restrained in moments of intense deceleration. This design became standard in Volvo cars, and the idea quickly spread around the world.
Hillerman was born in Montana in 1919 and got his PhD in microbiology from the University of Chicago in 1944. After graduating, he went to work as a researcher at E.R. Squibb & Sons, where he developed his first vaccine, which was used to protect American troops from the Japanese B encephalitis virus. Hillerman then went on to work at Merck & Co. Inc., where he developed or improved around 40 different vaccinations. This includes vaccinations for chickenpox, hepatitis A and B, measles, meningitis, mumps, and rubella. Out of the 14 vaccinations that are recommended for children today, 9 of them were developed by Hillerman. According to the New York Times, he saved more lives than any other scientist in the 20th century.
Scientists grow human cells in the lab to study how they function, understand how diseases develop, and test new treatments without endangering patients. To make sure that they can repeat these experiments over and over and compare the results with other scientists, they need huge populations of identical cells that can duplicate themselves faithfully for years. But until 1951, all human cell lines that researchers tried to grow had died after a few days. Then a Johns Hopkins scientist named George Guy received a sample of a strange-looking tumor. Dark purple, shiny, jelly-like. This sample was special. Some of its cells just kept dividing and dividing and dividing. Guy labeled it HeLa after the patient with the unusual tumor, Henrietta Lacks.